Good evening, Israel. This is a very tough time to be a Jew anywhere in the world, and particularly in Israel. I have tried to keep up with the events. Of course, your media has a news blackout on most everything that has happened. There are, of course, countless YouTube jihadists that are showing the utter obliteration of Israel. It appears from the many videos that I have filtered through that Iran has created a cluster missile that releases 30 or 40 incendiary type explosives out of one warhead, and that Israel is having a very difficult time stopping that, and that one has hit Tel Aviv and other places in Israel, and that they have landed very large missiles that have actually penetrated bomb shelters. I was exceedingly disappointed that you as a nation, by a considerable majority, almost by 2/3 majority, favored attacking Iran again. I'm disappointed that you trust Donald Trump and you believe that he has Israel's back and that he is the second coming of Cyrus. This simply is not the case unless you actually know the true Cyrus and the fact that he bribed his way into the conquest of Babylon. It is my conclusion, Israel, and I am an expert on the prophets. I probably know more about what Yahweh revealed through his prophets. I certainly understand more of what Yahweh revealed through his prophets, particularly at this time, than anyone else. My most recent book on this subject, you can find it at yadayah.com. It's free. It's the ninth volume of the Yada Yahweh series, one of 35 books on the site, yadayah.com. It's called Time of Trouble, and it will detail what you're experiencing now and what you will endure over the next 7 years. I want you to understand that what I'm going to say is critical. No one, I mean no one, cares more about Israel than I do. No one is closer to the God of Israel than I am. And yet I must be critical because you've made a series of tragic mistakes and you are now less than 90 days from entering what's called the time of trouble. I'm sure you are aware that the prophet spoke vociferously about it. It's the last 7 years before Yahweh's return with your king, who happens to be Dod, the Messiah and Son of God. Yeah, the one that you wrote out of your lives and the God whose name you erased. That's who's returning. They're returning on Yom Kippurim in 2033, which is year 6,000 Yah. I'll be there in Jerusalem, preparing a remnant of Israel for their return on taruw'ah in that year. And we'll join Elia on the Temple Mount 3.5 years prior to that, on Passover in 2030. I'm going to share prophecies about someone that is mentioned 4 times, twice in the Psalms, twice in Yeshaya Isaiah, called Rahab. And I want you to pay very close attention to who Rahab is, because Israel right now is a vassal of this man. Netanyahu put his nose so far up Rahab's butt yesterday, it was reprehensible. And I want you to know what the prophets had to say about him, because they say that he will betray Israel. This is a terrible position you have put yourself in. And I also want to speak to you about this war that you initiated with Iran. I don't speak in this situation as someone who likes Iran. I do not. I have no problem with the Persian people. Matter of fact, one of my books had the highest readership in Iran of any place else in the world. You may have heard of it. It's called Prophet of Doom. It had a profound effect on mitigating the influence of Islam in Iran so that there became a secular society again. I am unquestionably the world's foremost expert on the religion of Islam. And I prove in my 5 volumes, 4,200 pages of goddamn religion, free also at yadaya.com, that Allah is not a God, that Muhammad was not a prophet, that the Quran by any measure is the worst book ever written, and that the first Muslims perpetrated genocide against Jews, raping and enslaving those they didn't murder. The first year of the Islamic era begins with the Pledge of Aqaba, which is a pledge to wage war against all mankind. It began against the Jews. You are just continuing that battle. Al-Aqsa flood was a rehearsal for what's going to happen a little over a year from now. And it was a repeat of what Muhammad and the first Muslims did at Kabar. You can read Prophet of Doom, you'll know what happened at Kabar. You'll see it's exactly the same scenario that took place, right down to the smallest details, on October 7th of 2023. It was on that day that I wrote a 100-page letter to Israel, telling Israel the 5 things that you needed to do to survive, and then also telling you the things that I thought you were going to do and how that would be suicidal. You did all of them, and it proved to be the case. This is not your first mistake recently, Israel. What you don't know, and you don't seem to be able to process, is that the purpose of al-Aqsa flood wasn't to conquer Israel. It wasn't to expand Gaza. It was to play Israel. The entire purpose was to be so belligerent, so grotesque, that Israel would do what it did to Gaza. That as rage against the kidnapping and the rapes and the murders and the plunder and the arson, largely by everyday Muslims in tennis shoes and garden tools, some with automatic weapons, that shattered your trust in the IDF because they didn't respond, they didn't protect you, in your government. Most certainly shattered your trust in your rabbis, and caused Israel to lash out at Gaza in a way that destroyed it. Probably killed 70,000 people. That's even the estimates from the IDF, I guess, at this point. Well, the population of Gaza actually grew during that time. They knew, even before you invaded Gaza, that you'd be accused of genocide, and began to accuse you of genocide even before the invasion, because they played you into invading Gaza and destroying it. And you did. And what you did turned the world against you. I mean, no one knows more about Islam than I do. No one loves Israel more than I do. No one cried more for Israel on 10/7 than I did. No one understands that you were justified in lashing out against those who perpetrated such grievous harm against your people. But sometimes you can do things that are counterproductive, that are more hurtful to you than they are to your foe. Muslims want to die for the cause. And that was the intent. They set them up to die because they knew in Israel destroying Gaza that the entire world would turn on Israel, and it has. You don't have any friends anymore, Israel. You're all alone. You're isolated. Even the most intellectual, most well-informed commentators all now blame Israel for the mess the world is in. Even those who you wouldn't even consider as anti-Semites previously are touting that call, blaming you. And frankly, you walked into the trap. And now, by assassinating a very evil man and the Ayatollah, you've enraged the world again. You've united Muslims against you in this fairy tale that you were going to create regime change. You know, the very protests that the Mossad inspired, cultivated, they were nothing. They were never more than 1% of the people. The pro-government rallies now are 500 to 1 better attended than the protests against the government. You can't bomb a people into regime change. You tried to partner in regime change with the United States that has perpetrated 100 of them. Yeah, they're well practiced since the last World War. And everyone has been counterproductive. Have you considered what happened in Libya? Have you considered what happened in Syria, where you participated? You got rid of Assad, a bad guy, and you got the Islamic State, for crying out loud. Look what happened in Afghanistan. Look what happened in Iraq. You replaced the most stalwart man as a dictator in the Middle East against fundamental Islamic terrorism and gave the country to Iran. Talk about unintended consequences. Then you partnered with the U.S. on that awakening program, arming Sunni Muslims so they would thwart Shia Muslims, and it created the Islamic State. This is blowing up in your face. It was a complete myth to expect regime change. Regime change in the Islamic world always goes from bad to worse. There are no exceptions. So why did you do it? The country is, 20 times larger than yours? That's 7 million Jews, 7.5 million Jews in Israel, and they have 93 million population in Iraq. You know, you got a great Air Force. People with great character defending Israel. But to think that Israel can beat Iran, a country the size of Western Europe, with a population of just shy of 100 million people, are you out of your mind? It can't be done. All you're doing is making them mad. I had thought this time, because you did something tragic. You took Russia, which was fairly neutral in its dealings with Israel, would treat Israel actually quite well, while also treating other nations around you well. And you turned Russia into an enemy, not only because you joined the fight against Russia using Ukraine as a proxy, which was a tragic mistake by the United States, a grossly immoral mistake by the United States. And you joined that cause when Ukrainians had been worse than Germans for a longer period of time in terms of pogroms and anti-Semitic attacks. And you joined them. And then you attacked Iran, which was a Russian ally. You destroyed your relationship with Russia. You turned Russia against you. And you turned China against you. China was your second largest trading partner. And you turned them against you too. You went all in with the man I'm going to prove is Rahab, the one the prophet spoke, the one who will betray you. You can't beat the combination of Russia, China, or even BRICS, much less even Iran on its own. The Iranians are Persians. They're not Gazans. Their average IQ isn't sub 60. You can't win this war. It's tragic that you put yourself in this position, because unfortunately this time the United States is in no position to be able to negotiate a ceasefire. The Iranians had rather bludgeon the United States and push the United States forever out of the Islamic world. And that's what they're going to do. The United States doesn't have any staying power. A week, maybe two, and they'll be gone. They'll do what they did with the Houthis, for crying out loud. The Houthis beat the United States and caused the United States to turn tail and run. They cannot beat the Iranians. It's not possible. They're not going to put boots on the ground. They're going to lose ships. They've already lost bases. And when every Islamic country said to the United States, you cannot use our base or our airspace to attack Iran, what message did that send to you? I'm going to tell you what's actually happening. I can't prove it. I just sense it in my core. The reason that China and Russia haven't responded to your attacks and the American attacks on their ally, one that they're dependent upon, both of them, is because their ally can take a punch. Shia Muslims are always ready to be martyrs. They can take a punch, and they're going to. They even beat themselves up for fun. And both China and Russia know that Israel is way too small and too vulnerable, and there's not enough interceptors in the world to sustain a defense of Israel and a prolonged war. And a prolonged war, Israel loses badly. And they know it. And they also know that America will never reclaim its position in the Middle East. Muslims will never trust Donald Trump, ever. Those bases that have been abandoned, for the most part, they won't get them back. You see, have been over the last year, while Donald Trump has made a fool of himself with his tariffs, Saudi Arabia and China and Russia have been meeting and talking regularly. They've already made the decision to abandon the petrodollar and to go to the BRICS. And they won't go alone. They'll come with Kuwait, Qatar, United Arab Emirates. They'll all go together. This war has exacerbated that. At this war, because of the back channel negotiations between China and Russia, and that's the reason they're not engaged, they know that the longer this war goes on, the worse it is for Israel, the worse it is for the United States. They stay out of it, both get bludgeoned, both get weakened. The United States can't afford it. Becomes weaker, more depleted, and more isolated from the Islamic Middle East. And that vacuum has already been filled. They've already made the arrangements. It's with China and Russia, who you have established as your most formidable enemies, Israel. And the United States is going to go bankrupt over this, because the U.S. economy is held up by the illusion of solvency that is created through the smoke and mirrors of the petrodollar, and the U.S. being the reserve currency. But that's ending now, and this war is the final blow. And with the fall of the petrodollar, the utter destruction of the U.S. economy, European economy will go with it. This is what you brought on yourselves and the world. And you isolated yourselves from the alternative, BRICS, China and Russia, India. Yes, I know that you and Mow'ed have a glorious relationship. It's all going to be fine. Mow'ed is a pragmatist. You're isolated and you're the enemy of his alliance. You'll walk away. And the one man that you have trusted the most, the one that you hail as the second coming of Cyrus, the one that is more popular in Israel than any other, will betray you. The prophets have spoken, they're never wrong. And so these are the mistakes that you have put yourself in. And you've done so less than 80 days from the beginning of the time of troubles. Surely you know this period begins 7 years before Yahweh's return with your king, who is David. That means it's shabuw'ah, the Shabbat, of the 22nd of May of this year. I've been talking about this now for a very long time. Go to yadayah.com, you'll find a ticker on it on the timeline, how many days you have left to its beginning. It will last 7 years until taruw'ah of 2033. Your calendar is garbage. It's 197 years off. You don't even know when taruw'ah is. You celebrate the Babylonian head of the year. You're celebrating Purim now, which is a complete fable, a complete religious fable. All a lie. You've been played by your rabbis. Hanukkah is the same thing. It's a religious fable. You're ignoring Yahweh's 7 Mow'ed Miqra'ey. So here's where you are. And on this program, I'm going to speak to you about Rahab. I'm going to reprise something that we covered in Family Hour on Friday evening as Iran was beginning, you were beginning your assault on Iran, and Iran was beginning to retaliate. Boy, that was actually just hours before the war, with the time change, literally hours before this war. Oh, I wish I could turn back the clock. Oh, I wish I could get your attention. Oh, if I could get your attention back to October 7th of 23, and you would read my open letter to Israel. By the way, you'll find it in volume 1. It's called At War with Religion. And the first volume of Goddamn Religion. There's 5 volumes. You'll find them at the yadayah.com site. You need to read it, Israel. It's the only way you're going to survive this. And then read Time of Trouble, so you know what I'm talking about. Please. Your very existence depends upon it. So this reads, this is about the 9th and 10th verses of the most important piece of literature ever written. Sounds a bit egotistical to say it because I co-authored it. With a God whose name you do not know, but I know him. His name is Yahweh. The song was written primarily to resolve a tragic failure in Dod's life. Dod is the actual name of the person you refer to as David. He is the son of God, according to God. You ought to know. He's the chosen one. He is the Zeroah, which means he's the Passover lamb, according to God. He was anointed by Yahweh, making him the Messiah. He is the former king, and he is the returning king. His kingdom will be forevermore. And he is your Savior. This 89th Mizmor psalm was written expressly to resolve the issue of the the Bathsheba calamity with Dod, where he fell out of his relationship with Yahweh. And it was delivered to him probably around the time he was 60 years old. The Bathsheba incident took place when he was 54. It was tragic. And his response to Yahweh when Nathan delivered God's rebuke of what he had done, which, by the way, had nothing to do with having 20 or 30 wives and concubines. God didn't care. He said, if you wanted more, I'd have happy to arrange more. He didn't care about that stuff. He cared about what he did to acquire her. and the good man that he had killed. And then he wrote the worst letter ever written. And when he was confronted by Nathan in what was an extraordinarily eloquent speech that was given to him, the words by Yahweh, Dod's response is found in the 51st Mizmor song. It's repulsive. He absolutely lost it. Now, if you're wondering, how in the world can somebody serve as the Passover lamb and have lost it, have been such a corrupt individual? Prior to this, Dod had 48 years of honorable service, where he was the best man, I think, in the world. Brightest, most articulate, most heroic. Extraordinary life. 48 years. 8 years longer than Moshe. But ultimately it got to be too much for him, and he crumbled, just as Moshe crumbled. Representing Yahweh is a tough job. No one has been able to see it to completion up to this point. And he said a lot of things that he should not have said. In fact, I would be certain that you don't know. But God has a plan to resolve these. Maybe you've heard of a man named Chanok. Enoch is how the name is typically rendered, but it's Chanok. That he walked with God and then God took him. That's the model. That's the man. God has souls that he trusts, that he's worked with in the past, that he inserts into situations that need rectifying. There was none ever that needed more rectifying than what happened with Dod. Because here I'm going to tell you that if Dod isn't convinced to return to Yahweh, then he doesn't come back in a second of 3 lives to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, which is what he did. He was the one that was crucified in 33 CE, fulfilling Passover, opening the doorway to life. He was the one that took our guilt and deposited it into Sheol on Matzah, making us innocent before God. He is the firstborn of God that fulfilled firstborn children, Bikurim, the following day. All exactly on the schedule that he foretold through Daniel in 555 BCE, telling us exactly the day that he would fulfill Chag Matzah. And so this intervention was absolutely necessary. And that's what this Mizmor is about. And Ethan Ha-Izraki was that exact same soul as Enoch from so many years prior, said the following. He's speaking to Yahweh. You convey mashal, portraits, comprised of words, when exercising your authority, gloriously triumphing with the surging sea. That would be with the Gentile. Agitating, by going after the religious in particular, by majestically raising the illustrious and reoccurring force of the one from the west, who can be very abrasive. By lifting up his rolling stones among the turbulent waves as a witness, you laud and extol them with exuberant statements, commending their value, eliminating the noise, calming the chaos, and quieting the situation through them. I've done 2 shows to explain what these words mean, and I'm just going to give you the short version now. God began with Gentiles, turned to Yehudim. Yehudim turned against God. God left. He didn't change his loyalty. Yehudim are still the chosen people. But they wrote Yahweh out of their lives. They even changed their names to Jews so they wouldn't have Yahweh in their name. Yahud means Yahweh and Dod. You erased Yahweh's name. You became religious instead of engaging in the covenant. And there wasn't a single Yehud, not one, for over 2,500 years that would listen to Yahweh. The great Isaiah scroll, it's been out on display, probably tucked away now with all the missiles incoming. But why don't you read it and see what it says about these things? Because it tells you exactly what I'm telling you now. That there would be, in fact, you can even read it in the Torah, 29th chapter. There would be an Miqra'ey, an observant foreigner, in the last days that would come to save you from yourself as you revert to the conditions experienced in Sodom. And the world erupts with explosives, just like the brimstone that rained down on Sodom. That's what it looked like was happening in Israel with those cluster munitions. It's all spoken of in the prophets about, even in the Torah. That's what the 29th chapter of Devarim, Deuteronomy says about the arrival of this Miqra'ey. He is speaking to you now. Whether you want to accept that or not is up to you. Frankly, I don't care. My job isn't to convince you. My job is to get the attention of those who are not so lost in religion and politics that they're open to the truth, who know that the only one they can trust is God and they need to return to him. And if you return to Yahweh, he will return to you individually. Collectively, that will happen on taruw'ah in your 6,000 Yah, September 24th of 2033. But individually, there's still that opportunity for you. But you're going to need to up your game considerably. I'd encourage you to go to yadayah.com and just start reading. I had a woman today on one of the social media platforms that asked me to summarize the message. She said, I went to yadayah.com, but the books are way too demanding, and there's just too many pages of them. And so I just want the summary version. I said, no.
See ya.
God doesn't do summary versions. I won't do it either. God is more interested in keeping the religious and political out of Shamma'im than he is of encouraging someone to enter Shamma'im. He has a very high standard, and you must earn his trust. And you can't earn his trust by saying, give me the simple version. You need to listen to what he has to say. In Israel, you haven't done that in a very long time. These rocks, I was pun. I was named Craig. It means crog. That's the rocky crog that permeates the Torah and the prophets. Begins in the Torah that's the very source of Yahweh's light when he attracted Moshe to him. No, it wasn't a burning bush. Read it again. It's a rocky crag. And so says that this man from the west, from the sea, would make him a Gentile. He is the Miqra'ey. He'd have stones. He's depicted as a bull. He's turbulent. He is also a witness, it says here. He is lauded and extolled by Yahweh. There are upwards of 1,000 prophecies about him. He's also the choder of Isaiah 11. You read all about it. Prophecies were clear. He is the man from Edom of Yeshaya, Isaiah 63. It's everywhere. From the Torah all the way through the last of the prophets with Malachi. And he will enter Jerusalem, speaking from the Temple Mount, purged of all of the Islamic scars, with the tent of the restoring witness restored on the top of the Temple Mount, and the Ark of the Covenant returned. 10 statements that were etched in stone will be there as well. There'll be a scroll above our heads. I'm going to return with Elia. Yahweh is God. You know about him? And we're going to speak to you for the last 3.5 years, calling you back home, calling you to the taruw'ah ingathering, so that you're there for Kippurim. And while they say that the devastation to Jews, the prophets have said, will be worse than any time in your history, and they've been really bad in your history, there will be quiet around the Temple Mount because we see to it, so that you can listen to this message. We quiet the chaos. We calm the situation. It goes on to say, you batter and bruise, you reject, you silence, you crush that which can be compared to. Now, I want you to listen. That which can be compared to the reprehensible and yet pervasive, the diseased and the deplorable, the deadly nature of the ever popular Rahab, the conceited and contentious, the loud-mouthed afflictor, the emboldened, confusing confabulator, the audacious monster and mythical god, Rahab. Through your empowered and fortified, courageous and confident, unyielding and resolute, Rahab is done in, bruised, rejected, silenced, and crushed by Yahweh's Ba'oz. You ever heard of Ba'oz before? Maybe you know it as what? Boaz? Spelled exactly the same way. It means with strength. Isn't that the northern column on the temple? The one opposite of the city of Dod when the temple faces east? Dod's the other one. Boaz. Ba'oz. With strength. You will crush. You will reject. Yahweh always worked with people. And if Jews won't work with him, he'll find someone else. And so Rahab, and I'll read those adjectives that describe him again. He is crushed. He is rejected. He is silenced through Yahweh's empowered and fortified, courageous and confident, unyielding and absolutely resolute Zeroah. Zeroah, strong arm, cultivating the harvest. 2 more harvests. Shabuw'ah, taruw'ah. You isolate and you separate your adversaries. Rahab is the adversary. That was Mizmor 89:10. This is the most important song ever sung. From this point, by the way, this Mizmor turns to Yahweh's voice, and it speaks of Dod being the Son of God, being the Messiah, being the chosen one, being the most set apart, being the one who enabled the benefits of the covenant, the one through whom the covenant was actually cut. The Zeroah, the Passover lamb. There isn't just one Zeroah, there are 3 of them. Moshe, Dod, and this fellow right here that takes on Rahab. So Rahab is Yahweh's most formidable foe, as Dod's as well, the Messiah's. He is adversarial. Rahab is deplorable while being pervasive. He is equated to a reprehensible pandemic disease spread by popular appeal. Fortunately, Rahab will eventually be thwarted by the Mashal Proverbs, the word pictures inspired by Yahweh and scribed by this very man that collaborated in writing this Mizmor, Ethan Ha-Ezraki, and that is not a native-born man. Ethan's name is indicative of his role, and it mirrors Chinook's. He is perpetually inserted into situations like this to resolve them. The surging sea God brings against Rahab through exuberant statements calms the chaos that has infused into politics and religion. Ultimately, Yahweh's empowered and emboldened Zeroah triumphs against Rahab, silencing and crushing the adversary. Now, this is prophetically pointing towards Yada's library of Yada Yahweh volumes positioned against satanic religions, Twistianity. I've written 5 books proving that Jesus was not a God, that he never existed, and that Paul lied. It's called Appalling, the first volume. Then Toralist is the second volume. The third volume is Devil's Advocate. The fourth volume is Incredible. And the final closing volume is Foolology. I have received thousands of death threats for having written Prophet of Doom and now expanded it into the 5 volumes of Goddamn Religion. All free for you if you'll just go and read them at yadayah.com. Volume 1 is called Snake. 2 is Satanic. 3 is Submission. 4 is Slaughter. And 5 is Sunnah. All proving that Allah is no God, that Muhammad wasn't a prophet, but also demonstrating emphatically that the only reason Islam exists today is because rabbis sold Muhammad Talmud readings that he used to make the Quran seem religious. I've also written a 3-volume series called Babel, Beast, Abominable, and Venomous. And in it, I proved that the book of Ezekiel was inspired by Satan. And then I've written the Yada series. Time of Trouble is the 9th volume of that series, which prophetically identifies this beast and the harvest, which are being specified under the circumstances where the adversary meets his doom. He fails on taruw'ah. It is interesting. It is by killing me that he destroys himself. That's quite a story, but you'll find that story in Numbers 19 that resolves the problem of Numbers 5. As the whole series of events is presented in Numbers 15 to resolve the problem that Moshe ran into in Numbers 11 and 12. A lot to read. I know it's a lot to even write down, but the nice thing about these programs is you can replay that, listen to it, and go to yadayah.com. And we have a translation index. Read what I've discovered about each of those. Also relevant, all of this pertains to Dowd, our Messiah, our King, because Christianity stole his legacy to create the myth of Christ. Islam murdered his people, and Judaism took God's people away from him. And the events of the last days all lead to the king's return. Now, regarding Rahab, as we know, Yashaya, Isaiah 14, is devoted entirely to exposing and condemning this arrogant Babylonian beast, this confabulator with a diabolical legacy. But since Satan appears there by his actual name, Halal bin Shakar, I want to turn to the other places where the adversary bears this menacing title, and there are 3 more. Rahab. Recognizing that it's the most confusing of the 3 remaining, the first chronologically nonetheless is found in Mizmor Psalms 87:4. The reasons for the concern are that its 7 short lines were scribed by the sons of Korah. You probably know them. They're men with a highly checkered past. This Mizmor would have been written by those in service to Dowd, but it affords Yahweh credit for founding the city of Dowd. And Yahweh worked through Dowd to accomplish that. It says that Jacob lived there, which is not the case, unless the name is being used as a metaphor for Israel. But even then, they would have just moved in. After saying that significant things are spoken of the city of God, it doesn't bother to mention one. The lyrics abruptly transition to remembering Rahab, whose only prior mention was as a prostitute in Jericho serving Israeli spies, but that's not the same one. This one's latter days, end times, now. Nevertheless, this Rahab is associated with Babylon, and the message is said to be a warning to the Philistines and to the Phoenicians. It reads, Mizmor, melodious lyrics of a song of the sons of Korash, bald. The foundation is by him within the set-apart mount. Yahweh loves the gates of Zion, which means signs posted along the way, more than all of the dwelling places of Jacob, which means reward or consequence. Mizmor 87, 1 and 2. significant and weighty, notoriety, distinguishing and horrible things are spoken within you, I should say. Distinguishing and honorable things are spoken within you, city of the Almighty. Shall I ponder the implications? 87.3. I remember and recall, they wrote, Rahab, the conceited and contentious. Who's the most conceited and contentious politician, not only in the world today, maybe ever? Who is the most conceited and contentious public figure in the world today and maybe ever? Who is loudmouthed, afflicting? Who is a confusing confabulator? Who's the man who acts like an audacious monster, a cannibal? Who's the man who is followed by those who make him out to be a god? Who is the man trying to reestablish the Fourth Reich? Rahab. And Rahab is associated with Babel. Oh, of course, you know that Babel means Babylon, but that's not actually what it means, is it? You know that, don't you? You know that Babel is written exactly like Bible? And you know that it means to confound and to confuse by commingling truth and lies? The Talmud is Babel. The Christian New Testament is Babel. The Quran is Babel. Politics is Babel. So I remember and recall Rahab, the conceited and contentious loudmouth afflictor, and his confusing confabulations, this audacious monster, as a mythical god, and Babel, the confounding confusion and commingling of this association with Babylon. Approach those who are familiar with Yada. That would be me. Who know me. Behold, and be aware. Palestine, Palestinians rolling in the dust. This flint and knife of Tyre. With those Cush boring and digging tunnels. This one was conceived here and by this name. This is more 87.4. God's pretty good at this prophecy stuff, don't you think? And of Zion, again, means the signs posted along the way. These are the signs posted from the city of Dode and Dode's home at the bottom of the ridgeline of Moriah, all the way to the top of the Temple Mount, which was the home for Yahweh's name. And of Zion, the signs posted along the way. It will be said, one man, and then another man were conceived for her. They're Dode and Yada, by the way. The king and the Miqra'ey. Then he himself will establish, develop, prepare, and appoint her steadfast and ready. Obviously with these two men. You're listening? For Elion. Are you familiar with the composition of Elion? Have you heard of Shabbaton? Shabbaton is all things pertaining to the Shabbat, correct? The own ending in Hebrew, and it's a suffix that is used quite frequently. It means all things pertaining to what went before it. You're familiar with Al, which would be the Ein Lamed. It means Almighty. But it's followed by the Yod. The Yod either means my Almighty, or therefore all things pertaining to my Almighty, or it means all things pertaining to what Yod represents in the original alphabet that was used to scribe the Torah, which is God's hand reaching out to us with an open hand. And so Elion would be all things pertaining to the hand and influence of God. Do you know there's a man that Yahweh calls Elion? And if you don't, why don't you? I do. Who is the man that Yahweh calls Elyon? Happens to be the same man that he calls his Bakor, his firstborn son. The first man that he said he himself anointed as Messiah. The same man that he said he cut the covenant establishing the Bereth with. The same man that he called a Zeroah, the very sacrificial lamb of Passover. The very man that he called his chosen one. The very man that he said is the returning king whose seat of honor will exist throughout all time. He called that man Elyon. All things pertaining to the influence of God. That man is Dod. In writing down a written record of the people and of the family, it's this one who was conceived and brought forth, thereby this name and renown. Shalah. Ponder the implications. It was all written about your returning king, Dod. You ever read the creation account and wonder why the fourth day it seems to speak of the sun and moon being created, but out of sync because life was created the previous day and life can't exist without the sun. And of course, the sun existed before the earth, and life is only in the last billion years, plant life, and the earth is and the sun are, 4.5, 5 billion years old. Because it said nothing of creating either in the fourth day. It doesn't even call them the sun and the moon. It calls them the greater and lesser luminaries. And it says that they are signs for the Mow'ed. The Mow'ed are the 7 invitations to meet with God. They are the restoring witnesses to the eternal testimony. They are Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim. And let me tell you so that you do not lose track of this. Matzah is the key date. Pesach is just the first day of Chag Matzah. And Bakurim is the third. Shabuw'ah, taruw'ah, both harvests. Kippurim, the day of reconciliation, when Dod returns as the Messiah and King with Yahweh. And then Kippurim, where we get to camp out with God, who returns the entire earth to the conditions experienced in Eden. That's the one. Elyon. It's Dod. Thereby this name and renown. So, singers, and in harmony with the dancers, all my springs and sources of life are with you. The conclusion of Mizmor Psalms 87:7. Well, these balding sons, even if they were the descendants of traitors, they certainly foresaw the events pertaining to Rahab. And they have foretold what will eventually play out on and around the Temple Mount in the city of Dod. Yes, Rahab will be taken down on the Temple Mount. Taruw'ah, 24th of September 2033, a full eclipse of the sun. This Babylonian adversary would covet the place that Yahweh loves above all others. By implication, Rahab would try to erase the Sion, the signs posted along the way, and misdirect the world through Babel, confounding, confusion, commingling religion and politics, just as we're watching the great copper confabulator now in Donald Trump. Those who have become familiar with Yahweh through Yada are inspired to approach at this time. By contrast, the knife-wielding Palestinians emerging from their tunnels and covered in dust will be warned to stay away. That's what the rocks are for. And those surging waves. It's Israel and Yehud who were born here, not Muslims. According to the prophecy, 2 men would work together, both associated with the signs of Zion, both devoted to Jerusalem. They were conceived for this purpose, according to God, long, long ago. And as a result, they are established, prepared, appointed by God such that they are reliable and ready. They, and it's he, her, that are appointed and positioned to serve. They are serving the city of Dode because it is the last feminine singular reference in the Mizmor. Ultimately, these two Ish men are so immersed into Jerusalem and Ha-Kodesh, the set-apart mount, that they serve to prepare the world for Elyon, all things pertaining to the influence of Almighty God. And Elyon, as I have shared so many times, is written in the next section of the 89th Mizmor, and it is applied to one man, Dod. Symbolizing the restored reputation of our king as he returns with Yahweh, whose name is also restored. So it's a portrait of Yada serving Dod, the lesser luminary serving the greater luminary as signs for the Mow'ed, just as Genesis 1 reads. Ultimately, this is a prophetic portrayal of the showdown on the Temple Mount. It is in opposition to the conceited and contentious Rahab. You see, the Rahab, who should be obvious to you now, this confabulator of Babel, he's Donald Trump. I came to realize that almost 2 years ago. Then have been proving it and denouncing him ever since. He is going to move to Jerusalem, 29th of January, 2030. On the Ides of March 15th of 2030, he's going to proclaim that he's a god. He is going to make Israel defenseless. His first act, by the way, will take place shortly as things continue to degenerate in this war with Iran. The only way to stop it is going to be to forfeit the heart of Israel as a Islamic state. That's what's going to happen. The prophets have spoken. So at different times and also together, these two men work as one, both conceived for this purpose. And those who ponder the implications of what they achieve by fulfilling the Mow'ed, Dod, Pesach, Matz, and Bakurim, Yada, shabuw'ah, and taruw'ah, on behalf of Dod's return on Kippurim, such that we work in harmony during Sukkah. Doing so in the city of Dod. And those who are there will be singing and dancing in the fountains of life as they are released from the set-apart mount to restore the souls who were cleansed on taruw'ah. Now, in this regard, Satan's final death blow will be his undoing, when he, manifest within Donald Trump, slays me as the Adam of Parah, this bullish and productive man, doing so on Yom Teruah, the day of the herald, my nephesh soul and Rahab's ruach spirit will head in the opposite directions. So all of this is to affirm that we have correctly identified the nature and timing of the great Rahab showdown. It'd be the greatest show on earth. But there's more. In Yeshaya, Isaiah 37, Rahab is among the beasts of the Negeb, placing him within the land of Israel during the time of trouble, opposing the Ephah, the hissing and negating viper, and the flying seraph, flying fiery serpent. He will be the Labia. The ones who will be against them is the Lebia, the roaring heart of a white lioness, and a Leish, a boldly ferocious mature lion. There are so many pictures now with AI. They can create AI Jesus, and they have AI Jesus morphing into a white lion as if, somehow he is the Lion of Judah, but he's nothing but a rotten myth. Leish is the boldly ferocious mature lion that's going to take Rahab down. And his bride, his wife, is Labia, the roaring heart of the white lioness. She is also the Amma that is spoken of so frequently throughout the prophets and so gloriously about from Dod himself as he thanks Yahweh for providing his Amma, though the man who did not really know his mother, who was abandoned by his mother and father and had really crappy parents, was provided surrogate parents by God. They are the white lioness and this boldly ferocious mature lion, the labia and the leish in that prophecy. The roaring woman and the mature man with a considerable bite, represented by the lions, defeat the hissing viper, and his accompanying flying fiery serpent would be Satan and the man he occupies. As this occurs, the most capable of his combatants and his belligerents, a lot of them will be jihadists. I don't know if there'll be any MAGAs there or any MAGAs left, but there'll certainly be jihadists, will be carried off by donkeys. Appropriate, don't you think? Their supplies by camels, even more appropriate. This is to infer, of course, that they will be Arab Muslims and thus jihadists. And of them, God says that they are worthless, they are inept. And having written Goddamn Religion, I concur, but you need to read it. All the while, the one who controls and oppresses through religion and politics, along with his military, will have been engaged, constraining and abusing people. He will abandon Israel at this time. This is the great betrayal. Satan and his stooge will do nothing when counted upon. Their prior promises will be rendered utterly meaningless, according to Yeshayah, who never missed on a prophecy. The promises of Donald Trump and the demon that possesses him will be nothing more than delusional and empty words without merit. Having made promises to defend Israel, they will betray God's people. I've been telling you this for almost 2 years because I've read it in the prophets. Now, this is confirmed because we know from our prior studies of Yeshayah, Isaiah 17 and 18, we know the timing and the betrayal, and the one who betrays Israel, the great betrayer, is the demon-possessed, egomaniacal, sexually perverted, and diabolically vicious Donald Trump. He's the one who will have been president of the United States of America, which is depicted as the final blow to Israel that causes a Fakistanian state. He and his satanic partner are Rahab. This is the message Yahweh was emphatic that Yeshayah commit to writing, so that we, as we approach the last days, could read it, understand it, explain it, and share it with you. With that introduction, here is that prophecy. Listen, Israel. A prophetic pronouncement about the impending burden of the beasts of the Negeb, of the parched. Within the land of Shara, anguishing, confinement, and trouble. Even oppression when besieged in dire straits. The labia, the roaring heart of the white lioness, and the leish, the boldly ferocious mature lion, will be against them. They will be against this ephaya, this hissing and negating viper, and the flying, fiery serpent. Their strongest and most capable fighters will be carried away upon asses and donkeys, and upon the humps of camels, their treasury, arsenal, and food supplies, among a people who have absolutely no value or benefit, and who will not succeed. They will accomplish nothing. Isaiah 36. Then the assistance and support of Miqra'ey, the one who controls and oppresses through politics, religion, and the military, abusing and restricting people. It's from that same word, Sarah, will be for naught and in vain, utterly meaningless and a waste of breath, a delusional fantasy of empty words without merit. You negotiate with demons. What do you expect? As a result, and for these reasons, I will call what pertains to this individual man, Lazoth, Rahab, him. They're conceited and contentious, loud-mouthed and pretentious, confusing and audacious, afflicting monstrous beast and mythical god. Incapacitating and incapacitated. Sitting this one out. Doing nothing. Yeshaya, Isaiah 37. So now go, because it's imperative that you write this down on a tablet, accompanying them and to accompany them, and also upon a written document, whether a scroll or a book. You must inscribe it, as if engraving it by chiseling it in stone, portraying it as decreed. And my guess is that if you're a Jew listening to this, you've never heard it before. Why? Then it will come to exist, pursuant to a day, in the end, Akarah, in the end, Akaron, all things pertaining to the last days. For the Ad, the restoring witness, Ad of the eternal testimony, continuing and continually providing evidence throughout all time, Olam, from antiquity into perpetuity, the future and forevermore. Isaiah 38. It is as the prophets foretold. Whether you're looking at the depiction provided by Gabry'el and Miqra'ey. Gabry'el is dubbed the one who is the most courageous and capable man of God, not an angel. And Miqra'ey is the lesser luminary, the one who explains the prophecy, is the one who's right about God. They describe this man with his comb-over hair, his long-on days, very old, sexually perverted, egomaniacal, seeking control of the world, betraying Israel. Right now. Doing so 7 years before Yahweh Dode return. Right now. It's Donald Trump. He has been possessed by Satan. I'm not speculating. I'm not giving you my opinion. I'm telling you this as a fact. The prophets are never wrong. He is the great betrayer of Israel, the man that you think is protecting you, the man that Israel loves, is the great betrayer. He is Satan in the flesh. This is the only informed and rational conclusion that can be deduced from the depictions in Yeshaya, Isaiah, Daniel, and even Ezekiel, which speaks of this man as a real estate consultant that's doing all the measurements for this grandiose temple to Satan. Cover all of Judea, not just Jerusalem, not just the Temple Mount. That he's called a copper man, in addition to the Psalms. In alliance with Satan, they have become the embodiment of Rahab, egocentric. An egocentric man and his false god, Satan. Fortunately, they will have met their match in the Akaron in the end, as a result of the Ad, the restoring witness, to the Ad, eternal testimony, who continually provides evidence throughout time, Olam, from antiquity into perpetuity and forevermore. Even though we have resolved the identity of Rahab, we have not yet completed our evaluation of the prophetic implications conveyed throughout about this adversarial demonic duo of Donald Trump and Satan. Because Rahab is also the subject of Yeshaya, Isaiah 51:9, which is the last time he is mentioned. 4 is enough. And once again, the antagonist is Yahweh's unyielding Zeroah. And Israel, you don't even know about that title, do you? And it's vastly more important than Messiah. Vastly more important than Messiah. This time, rather than referring to Rahab as the integration of the hissing viper and the flying fiery serpent, he is their evil twin, the Tanim, the monstrous serpent, who is the diabolical dragon, Tanin. Rahab, Satan. Donald Trump is literally Satan in the flesh. And it should be obvious. You should choose to be alert and aroused. You should choose to be alert and aroused, Israel, opting to rise up and to be exposed while uncovering and unmasking the blindness and the injustice of others. You know, your politicians that have led you astray, and those rabbis who have damned you. Decide of your own free will to be clothed in confidence and courage, in boldness and in might, and in power and in strength to accomplish anything and withstand everything, fortified and resolute, unyielding and steadfast, as the Zeroah of Yahweh, the strong arm of God, cultivating the seeds for a productive harvest unto Yahweh. You should choose to be alert and aroused, to rise up while exposing blindness and injustice in the manner of the days from long ago to forevermore. Why? Because this same man that serves as the final Zeroah has been inserted into the scene to solve problems from almost the beginning. It is God's way. From before time to eternal time. For the generations, for the places, for the epochs of time. From antiquity and into the future forevermore. Yes or no? Will it not be you, as the Zeroah of Yahweh, who will dig the grave, who will flash a brilliant and bright light, and then cut into pieces, carving up Rahab, the conceited and contentious confabulator, the loud-mouthed, pretentious afflictor, the emboldened, confusing, and audacious monster with his mythical god, Rahab, arrogant and stormy, frenzy and haughty, insolent and idolatrous, defiant and overly verbose, senseless and insubordinate, self-absorbed and self-motivated, an abuser falsely claiming divine status and authorization, as you pierce by showing contempt for Tanin, this monstrous serpent and diabolical dragon. Damn straight I will. The message is clear. It's bold. Rahab is the corporeal manifestation of Satan who betrays Israel in the last days. He is demonic and devilish, conceited and confounding, loudmouthed and vicious, a senseless confabulator who is exceedingly abusive. He is the integration of Satan and Trump, who, after making all manner of promises to Israel, won't honor any of them. Promising to defend and support Israel, he will do the opposite and aid and abet her enemies as he blames the nation's subjugation on their miscalculations rather than his own. Ever as Yahweh's Zeroah stands resolutely against hell's ambassadors on taruw'ah, while serving as the Adam of Parah, this bullish man and productive bull. By striking him, Satan and Trump will have rendered their final blow. The Tanim, this monstrous serpent and diabolical dragon, will be no more. Yes, in killing my body, they will destroy their soul. And in my body, Israel will live. It's the story of the Adam of Parah, Numbers 19, purging the adulterous woman of Numbers 5 of her guilt so that she can be betrothed to the returning king, Dod. And this is the message of Ethan Ha-Izraki, delivered to Dod from Yahweh. No doubt it got the king's attention, as it did mine, and as it should yours. You are now a vassal, Israel, of Rahab. Benjamin Netanyahu has put you into this mess. You have followed a leader drunk on power. He knows nothing but war. You have a horrendous enemy that is all around you. That enemy is Islam. The enemy of October 7th was Islam. The enemy 1400 years ago was Islam. But the enemy in your midst is your rabbis and your politicians, and they have led you away from Yahweh. They have erased his name. They have robbed and plundered your soul. They have led you astray. You need to honor the first condition of the covenant, which is to walk away from Babel, just as Abraham and Sarah did, walking away from the integration of religion and politics that so permeates Israel. You must do this before you can even approach God. Then you must restore his name. Come to appreciate his beloved Son, who enabled the benefits of the covenant. Act upon what he has given to you as a gift. Come home. Return to Yahweh. Listen, please. And I would encourage you, tell your friends about this program. Have them listen to. Have everyone you love listen. Go to yadayah.com. Verify that everything I have told you is true. I love you. I will lay down my life for you. I thank you for listening.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. That was Fetch. Gotta run now. Catch y'all on our next podcast.